Hello, I'm Skidetska, and I'm back with the second part of Substitute Teacher. This time the fic is called Substitute Principle, and it's still from the same author, Mischievous at Heart. This has two chapters, so it will be split probably into two parts. And let's get right into it. Summary. When Aizawa Shouta noticed that his problem child is missing from his class again, he already knows that something was going on. So, much like a normal teacher, he ran, to the principal's office to ask what kind of shit the rat made his problem child do again. But before he can open the door, it opened on its own, and in front of him was the child he was looking for, though the glint in his eyes tells a different story. "Oh, hello, Aizawa. Would you like some tea?" Chapter 1. Today will be a bad day, Shouta thought. No, Mondays are always the worst anyway. Shouta should have expected that already. The teacher's lounge ran out of coffee, so he didn't get a chance to drink his life juice. He tried to refill it, but then he found out that the rat hid his coffee stash for some reason unknown to him. What's worse is that Hisashi found it a good time to sing Let It Go with Eri. Eri's voice is beautiful, but Hisashi? Shouta was lucky that he had spare earplugs in his pocket. It was too loud in the morning, for God's sake. Since his day started all wrong, Shouta was sure that his day will be either A. chaotic, or B. disaster. Sometimes it will be a combination of both, so he prays that won't be that bad. A few minutes later, Shouta realizes that Kami really hates him, because instead of the usual 20 students inside a classroom, he only faces 19. He saw the empty desk behind Bakugo, and suddenly he had the urge to jump out of the classroom window. There were only 19 students because Midoriya is missing, which only means that either the problem child is really late in class or Nezu included him in some shit again. Midoriya is rarely late in the class, so the latter has the highest possibility. With the act the kid pulled last month, teachers had been wanting to have him substitute their classes. It only stopped when Nezu threatened the other teachers to stop hounding the kid, or else their pay would be docked in addition to being suspended. The underground hero just sighed before fishing his phone out of his pocket and started calling the principal. When it was ringing, he prayed to whatever deity out there that he can stay sane after all the events that will transpire today. A few seconds later, he heard the rat's voicemail. Shouta felt annoyance and fear at the same time. He knows something is very wrong. Not the horrible kind of wrong, but the chaotic kind of wrong. The ones that fills him with dread and anticipation. He knows that if Nezu is not answering and something horrible happened, there would be an emergency signal for all the teachers on the campus. There was no signal issued on the campus. Therefore, it only means that the rat is up to something that may or may not include his problem child. The times he knows Nezu won't answer his calls unless something terrible happened in the school are only when he is sick or he is too busy. The latter being too often to count because the Hero Society is still recuperating from the retirement of the symbol of peace. But it was still morning. The rat always answers his call in the mornings, regardless if he was busy or not. So, excuse Shouta for thinking that something was suspicious in this situation. He glared at his aliens and felt proud that they went silent for only a second. A vast improvement from the 8 seconds they had in their first year. He hid the smile that escaped him from his face in his capture scarf before speaking. "All right, it took you a second to shut up today. Much appreciated. Now, Ida." He called the class representative, and Ida immediately stood up. "Yes, sir!" the boy exclaimed and saluted. Shouta really wants to drop dead now. Why everyone is so loud in the morning. First things first though. I will leave you in charge now. I'll go to Nezu and ask where the problem child is, because I doubt you know where he is. The blue-haired boy stared at him in shock and stiffly nodded. Shouta sighed. Looks like he was right that Nezu has another plan for the problem child. "Okay, Sensei, if you find Midoriya, please convince him to come back to class." Ida asked. "No," pleaded, if his eyes are any indication, and Shouta found himself confused. Did something happen before class? "Why?" he asked, and Ida looked at his classmates hesitantly before answering him. "Because at the dorms he just passed by us, and when we asked where he is going that early in the morning, he gave us a—" the boy explained, but he was interrupted by Ashido, who suddenly stood up with her hand raised. "A very creepy grin. It doesn't fit him at all," she exclaimed, making some of the students shiver at the memory. Ida nodded at the girl before continuing. "Yes, a very creepy grin. Thank you so much, Ashido. And he just said that I'm planning to take over the world." If Shouta didn't feel dread earlier, now it was pouring over him in full force. This is what he wants to avoid, aside from villain attacks. He pinched the bridge of his nose and sighed again. There was no doubt. This day is already bound to be a chaotic disaster. At least he's not the only one who will be affected. The underground hero looked at the boy pitifully and nodded at him. "Take over and keep the damage to a minimum," Shouta said before he promptly turned heel and walked out of the classroom with the destination in mind. He really has the urge to deck the principal, but hey, he had more self-control than that and the love for his job, even if he won't admit it. He reached the principal's door and knocked. When there is no answer, he was just about to kick it open when suddenly the door opened on its own. Standing in front of him was his problem child, dressed in freaking suit that was awfully similar to the principal's clothes, and a glint in his eye that will probably haunt Shouta for the rest of his life. "Oh, hello, Aizawa. Would you like some tea?" A few hours before, Izuku was joking with his friends earlier when he said that he'll be taking over the world, just to mess with them, but he didn't know that the joke will turn out to be true. Why? Of course, Nezu-sensei just made him substitute for him as the principal of the most prestigious hero school in the country. Nothing too special, right? Absolutely ridiculous. He is panicking on the inside. Why the heck Nezu-sensei chose him for this and not Aizawa-sensei? With all the things his mentor made Aizawa-sensei do, any student would think that the underground hero is the vice principal of UA. He was ashamed that he was fidgeting in his seat in the principal's office, where the principal just looked at him in amusement. The principal took a sip of tea before looking at Izuku. I chose you because of two reasons, Izuku-kun. One, Aizawa is very keen that he'll never substitute for me. At least he'll make the students and teachers' lives a living hell when I'm gone. And two, consider it as a practice. A practice? Even though the principal is telling him this seriously, Izuku can't help but look at him incredulously. Why did the principal thought it's better to give him this huge role just for practice? Consider as practice of what, sensei? He nervously asked, and Nezu chuckled. The response made Izuku shiver. This is gonna be bad, isn't it? The practice of management. The principal's eyes glinted, and Izuku already knows what he was asking him to do. Management of the higher-ups, just like I do with the Hero Commission. It's a very handy skill when dealing with them, Izuku-kun. Nezu took another sip from his cup, and the boy in front of him went silent for a minute, before looking at him hesitantly. So, you basically want me to manage my teachers and my classmates while you're gone? Izuku asked, but both of them know what he is asking. Basically, you telling me to manipulate my teachers and classmates into my bidding, in addition to actually managing the school? Exactly. It shouldn't be that hard, isn't it? I even prepared a schedule for you. Nezu put down his cup before pulling a piece of paper out of his drawer and gave it to Izuku. When Izuku saw his schedule, he can't help but burst out laughing. He'll be teaching foundational heroics again. Oh god. Nezu-sensei, what did you do to All Might? Izuku forced himself to stop laughing, a smile on his face as he looked at his mentor. The principal just raised his brows. I did nothing. The principal tilted his head, feigning innocence. Izuku laughed again. At this point, All Might is basically his mom's roommate. Sensei, while I'm not opposed if you locked my other father figure with my mom again, please inform me the next time that he won't be the only one who will get the treatment. Add him next time too, will you? The green-haired boy requested, mirth shining in his eyes. The principal shook his head in response, but Izuku can see that the principal wanted to do it too. Ah, I'm afraid that you are the only one who can force Aizawa to have a day off, Izuku-kun. Yagi doesn't have a problem spending time outside the campus since he's retired from hero work, but Aizawa has several. Several, including Izuku and his class. Izuku wanted to smack himself for his idiocy. Right, I completely forgot about that. The green-haired boy scratched his head in embarrassment. His hand hung low, but then he realized something. But you never answered my question, Sensei. Izuku's lips curled upward at the look he got from his mentor. A passive face, but there was something shining in the creature's eyes that made Izuku feel amused by the situation. You don't need to know, because you already know the answer, Izuku-kun. The principal continued drinking his tea, making Izuku chuckle. This day will be disastrous, isn't it? Touché. They were silent for a while, and the silence made Izuku think for a moment. Sure, he's a principal's student, but technically, isn't this favoritism now? Giving a role of a principal to a student when he could have just given it to the other teachers. Are you sure about it, Sensei? Surely there are other people who are more competent for this. I may be a student, but don't you have connections that will handle the school better in your stead? Izuku looked at the principal in worry. Nezu put down his teacup aside and waved him off. The creature walked towards Izuku and placed a paw in his head. I'm sure, Izuku, I trust you in fulfilling this role. Besides, won't Aizawa be glad that I won't be in UA for a while? Nezu then grinned at his student, flashing all his teeth. Yet instead of being terrified, all of his worries now went away, and Izuku gave a similar grin of his own. Alright, it's okay if I come up with something then. Suit yourself. If you manage to fool Aizawa, you'll get extra credits. Both of them stared at each other before bursting into cackles. Midoriya. Shouta sighed. He's relieved that his student is safe, although that begs the question of where the hell Nezu is. He looked at the kid and observed him. There was still a glint in those eyes that made Shouta repress a shiver. This is why he never wanted Midoriya to meet Nezu. They are too much alike in mind. Ah, I believe we have some predicament, Aizawa. You see, I'm not Midoriya. Come again? Shouta didn't think he heard it right. The kid in front of him maintained a calm and apathetic expression, the exact opposite of Midoriya. But that doesn't mean that Midoriya isn't impersonating the principal. Midoriya acting like Nezu is more believable than the Midoriya is not the Midoriya stick. Midoriya, if you are acting again. How would you know that I'm Midoriya, Aizawa? The kid looked up to him, head tilted, with a smile on his face. A smile that was very terrifying. It didn't fit in Midoriya's face. Problem child, I have no time for this. If Nezu made you act, just stop. Shouta won't admit it, but he's scared. Who would be not scared if they saw Nezu's expression on a human face? Especially if it's on a problem child's face, the one they call Sunshine Child. He looks possessed. I did not, Aizawa. Why would I order myself to act? Problem Child raised an eyebrow at him as if mocking him and demanding his reason for denial at the same time. Then give me one thing that only Nezu knows about me. He challenged, and the green-haired boy merely frowned, like he was disappointed at Shouta. If Shouta finds out that Midoriya is just acting like Nezu, and the principal gave permission to his student to really govern the school, he might lose his mind. Just like his students said many times, he might not be able to look at Midoriya the same again, since his face will be associated with the ones he acted. There are a lot of things, but probably the one thing that only I know is that you are my student once. There you go, a very general fact. Everyone knows that Shouta has been a student of Nezu once, but the rat was also their ethics teacher in UA once. Everybody can be your student since you are the principal. Try again, Midoriya. A smirk made itself known on Shouta's face, but to his horror, a smirk also surfaced on the green-haired boy's face. My mistake. You are my personal student. The third one out of all, and the first heroical student, in fact. Shouta froze. He's pretty sure that the rat in the child's body revels in his shock if that mirth in his eyes are any indication. Also, A part of your costume is inspired by your friend who passed away in your high school years. Knowing that Midoriya shouldn't know about the fact, especially the last one, which made some of Shota's memories resurface, he sighed and gave the principal a look. What happened so bad that you got stuck in my problem child's body, Principal? Now that the questions about the principal's identity are out of the way, Nezu sat on his seat and sighed, rubbing a hand on Midoriya's hair, just like he rubs his paw in his fur when he was stressed out. Midoriya and I got switched out of our bodies when a student with a body swap quirk bumped into us. I doubt that the student knows it, but it'll take to him later and ask when we will be switched back. A smirk then appeared on Midoriya's face, and Shouta doesn't even know if the principal intended to express that much. In the meantime, I will be running the school with Midoriya's body. It was intended, Shouta realizes. The principal looked up to him with a smirk still plastered on his Midoriya's face, which then morphed into a grin, making his features look more deranged. Then where's your body, Nezu? Brother, where's Midoriya? The rat shook his head, another sigh escaping his lips. He took a sip from his teacup before answering the question. It may seem ridiculous for me to say this, but I'm supposed to make an appearance to the Hero Commission today, and I sent Midoriya and my secretary to attend the meeting. What? Then Midoriya is out there talking to the Hero Commission instead of the principal? Does Nezu realize what he did? Why the hell would you send a child to those hands, Nezu? He expressed his opinions and such, and the rat only chuckled at him. Aizawa, he's barely a child that can handle himself fine. He waved Shouta off before taking another sip from his tea. He looked at Shouta in the eyes before saying the following words. Besides, I'm surprised you haven't figured out our relationship yet. Relationship? What does the principal mean? The possibilities ran in Shota's head, making his mind reel. But no matter how much he thought about it, he came up with only one answer to the question. Please don't tell me you made him your personal student, because that will be a major headache. A wide grin appeared on his kid's face. It was Nezu's grin. Oh God. And the principal just continued to stare at Shouta. Is this why Midoriya said to his friends that he plans to take over the world? Because he's feeling with them from the start? Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Shouta grumbled under his breath, his fist clenching at his sides. Nezu, are you planning to destroy the society early? Do you really take all problem children as your personal students? The principal just stared at him, the grin no longer on his face. His head tilted a bit, an eyebrow raised at his question. So, you are saying that you are a problem child too in your day? Aizawa? Shota's eyes almost popped. This principal, really? Yeah, no. Shouta stopped his voice and sighed. There was no point debating such things to the principal. Fine, I suppose I am. But Midoriya is more of a problem child than I was. Debatable, but not now. The principal cackled at Shota's anger. He seems to enjoy making his colleagues angry these days, huh? Shouta took a deep breath, reining his anger in. The rat just knows his buttons and pushes on the right spot. Is that all that you brought here, Aizawa? Nezu leaned back in his chair, his hands clasped on the table. Shota's eye twitched. Yes, I found my answer, so now I'll be going back to class, because I don't want to deal with this. He groaned, and the principal laughed at his misery again. Shouta moved to leave, but before he can reach the door, the principal's word made him stop in his tracks. Well, don't worry. All Might isn't here today, so you'll have less to worry about. The underground hero turned around to face the principal again. He wishes he hadn't, because Nezu looked up to him with narrowed eyes and glaring full of teeth. Although I'll be teaching foundational heroics today. Shouta looked at Nezu incredulously. What? What will you be teaching? Oh. He finally realized why Nezu will be teaching and suppressed a shiver. The rat just continued to grin. Yes, remember the third year, Aizawa? Remember the torture you had to go through? Shota's mind whispered, and this time he hadn't suppressed the involuntary shiver that ran through his body. It's already their time for that. Correct. It's also already their time for that. The underground hero gulped before looking at the wall clock inside the principal's office. Just be gentle with the kids, Sensei. They may find it a bit traumatizing. Nezu just waved his concerns off and laughed. There is nothing to be worried about, Aizawa. They'll be okay. If they can't handle this, then they aren't fit to be heroes. Both of them stared at each other, waiting for one another to concede. In the end, it was Shouta who gave up. Fine. The underground hero closed his eyes before pinching the bridge of his nose. The principal looked at him in amusement. Go on to your class, Aizawa. I'll see you later. Shouta just nodded and got to the hell out of there. It seems like he will need to go to back lunch rush to give him coffee later, with the amount of stress he got from a single meeting with the principal. Once Aizawa is nowhere near the principal's office, Izuku allowed himself to relax and slumped in his mentor's seat. That was tense. If Aizawa-sensei was once Nezu-sensei's personal student, why did he look so traumatized at the idea of Annalise's classes? He got a scuzz for it and all. Izuku groaned, putting his head on the principal's table above his folded arms. His thoughts ran amok for a while before it was cut short by a sudden ring of the telephone on his mentor's table. Izuku reached for the phone and answered. Hello, Izuku-kun. How did it go? Izuku laughed. How did it go indeed? Aside from witnessing many kinds of emotions filter in Aizawa-sensei's face in the span of a few minutes, he finally got to see his beloved teacher look afraid of something. Why are you asking if you already know? Izuku replied to his mentor, who just chuckled in response. Well, that's because it's better hearing it from you. So, tell me, how was the experience? Izuku chuckled, scratching his head as he recalled the moments before this call. It was nerve-wracking to treat Aizawa-sensei like that. And he called me sensei. It's kinda bizarre having the roles somehow reversed. It's bizarre to see Aizawa-sensei afraid of analysis classes when he is the one who emphasized that analysis is very important in being a hero. I'll admit, I was was impressed by your acting and the story you accompanied it with. It's been a long time since Aizawa could call me sensei. His mentor cackled on the other line, making Izuku smile in return. I know, I analyzed your footage, remember, sensei? The principal hummed affirmatively, still cackling about the fact that Aizawa sensei called him his sensei. It took a while for the principal to speak again. That was beside the point, though, Izuku-kun. The real question is, how did you find out there was a first-year student that has a body swap quirk? About that. Izuku's hand instinctively scratched the back of his neck. Well, about that, I finally hacked into your database yesterday. The line suddenly went silent, and Izuku thought for a moment that his mentor was so angry that he hung up the call. Nezu-sensei? Izuku called, and then he heard a snort, before a burst of full-blown laughter. Sir, please. Nezu's secretary started on the other line, but Izuku already hung up the phone. The green-haired boy leaned into the chair before looking at the ceiling. I'm in deep shit. As usual, Shouta was in the teacher's lounge, trying to get some rest and counting the few minutes before his day goes to shit again. Apparently, it was more visible in his face today, since a cockatoo dropped beside him. What's got you so worked up, Shouta? The cockatoo spoke, and Shouta knows he shouldn't be annoyed with his friend being concerned, but his emotional restraint today is reaching its limit. A lot of things. Analysis classes are the top of the list. He grumbled, aggressively writing in his lesson plan. He saw Hisashi's eyes widen at his statement before it morphed into pity. It's their time already? May God bless those poor souls. Shouta fully agrees. He finished writing, sighing, before setting his lesson plan aside. I'm kinda sorry for the problem child, though, he sincerely said, which made Hisashi look at him in confusion. Why? Am I even allowed to say this? Shouta thought, while he looked at the camera in the teacher's lounge. Well, Nezu and Midoriya's bodies got swapped. He got interrupted by a sudden shrill of the cockatoo beside him. What? Shouta glared at the blonde with his quirk activated. Can he see he's trying to keep this down? Once Hisashi quieted down, he continued. And Nezu, in Midoriya's body, will be teaching Class 3A analysis. The blonde went silent for a while, astonished by the information he received. Well, won't you give your class a heads up then? Shouta just scoffed. Did he really need to question that? Nope. If Nezu didn't give us a heads up in our time, I sure as hell won't. He replied. In response, Hisashi snorted. Being petty, I see. The underground hero rolled his eyes. Suffer. While I find it amusing that you two can bicker literally every day at work, don't you have classes, Yamada? Both Shouta and Hisashi jumped at the sudden voice, and both of them saw Midoriya, nope, it's Nezu, in front of them, whose eyes are narrowed at Hisashi. The blonde squeaked before replying. Yes, Nezu-sensei. The principal just stared at Yamada for a while before slowly blinking. I'm not your teacher anymore, Yamada. Nezu is fine. Go on with your classes. Hisashi immediately booked it, leaving Shouta and Nezu inside the teacher's lounge. Shouta-kun, the name was called in a sickly cheerful tone, a tone Shouta knows only Nezu is capable of, and he can't help but feel terrified hearing it from Midoriya's mouth. I forgot to tell you that I'll be the one that will be announcing to the teachers about the incident, but it seems that you have beat me into it. A smile appeared on Midoriya's face, making Shouta gulp. I thought it was okay to tell since you never said it was a secret. Shouta clenched his fist hard. He was supposed to be an adult, goddammit. Why does he cower in front of his former teacher? Nezu tilted his head in amusement before shrugging. Well, I suppose. Could you collect the teachers to me in the meeting room in the break time then, Shouta-kun? The principal patted his shoulder and went to leave the teacher's lounge. Shouta groaned and buried his face in his hands. He's literally cursing himself inside his mind. What did he do wrong? Will he die today? Other people beside his friends will think he is over-exaggerating, but he is not. Nezu only called him Shouta-kun when he pissed off the rat. And now that he can see the emotions on the rat through the problem child's face, it is horrifying. Sure, Nezu-sensei, he replied self-consciously, and sure enough, the use of his sensei stopped the principal from his tracks. Shouta wanted to smack himself for his stupidness. Kami, kill him now. The same rule applies to you that calling me Nezu is fine. What is wrong today? Everything. Nothing. The principal just chuckled. Well, if you insist. This time, the principal really left him to deal with his musings. Shouta sighed and started texting all his coworkers. By texting all his coworkers, he meant leaving a vague message in the teacher's group chat. He knows at this point that Nezu is his colleague, but sometimes the habit to call him sensei still resurfaces, especially the times when he adds the kun and calls him by his first name. Combine that both, he's pretty sure he is in trouble. Who pissed in your pancakes today, Shouta? Shouta looked up to see Nemore was staring at him weirdly, a finger pointing at his eyes. Shouta wanted to break that finger, if only he had enough energy to deal with this crap of the day. The more appropriate question is, who stole my coffee, Nemore? So, why'd you text all of us to be here, Aizawa? It isn't like you to text your coworkers, let alone be in the group chat. Aizawa just looked at Snipe with long-suffering eyes and promptly dropped his head onto the top of the table. I guess this meeting will be bad. Huh? Nemore snorted, poking Shouta's head with his finger before whispering to Hisashi that he is dead. The dead person then groaned, swatting away the heroine's intrusive finger. Aside from seeing the principal today, everything is just peaches, Snipe. The cowboy hero gave Shouta a sympathetic look. Shouta can appreciate it more if not for the fact that the principal is here, listening to their conversation. The van door suddenly opened, revealing the rat that have been eavesdropping on them since the beginning. And aside from Shouta-kun being his usual grumpy self, the problem principal, who was fucking hanging in the fence like some sort of bat with half of his body, grinned at all of them. All of them can agree that it looked so wrong in the problem child's face, which caused various reactions from the teachers. There are some who shrieked, such as Hisashi, some who threw something at the principal due to shock, Puffer Loader who threw a tumbler in the principal's direction, and some who shivered at the presence of this entity, such as Memory and every other teacher in the room, including Shouta, because if he is being honest, that grin on his problem child's face can bring him nightmares. Okay, first you made us think you were a clone of Aizawa, and now I'm pretty sure you're just acting to give me nightmares of Nezu Midoriya. But King, or Count Sekichiro, stated after he recovered from the shock the principal gave. Wait until you get the bomb, Shouta thought, as the principal looked at the blood hero innocently before dropping from the vents and chuckled. I'm not Midoriya, Sekijiro-kun. All of the people inside the room, except Shouta and Hisashi, froze at the kid's statement. Shouta groaned at the principal's dramatics, and the Kukatu beside him is trembling. The grin on the problem child's face just widened on their fear-stricken faces. Serves them right for assuming. Huh? The blood hero stuttered, and the teachers soon realized that the kid in front of them is not joking. The principal didn't say anything, and just stared at the teachers of the room instead of clarifying himself, heavily implying that Shouta should be the one to break it to them. Fuck you, damn right. Shouta slammed his head on the table, which garnered the attention of the teachers in the room. The bodies of Midoriya and Nezu got swept. So, what you are seeing now in front of you is the principal in my problem child's body. Silence enveloped the room as the other teachers processed the information to their heads. It was only broken when the principal clapped his hands. What he said is correct. Apparently, the quirk's effects last from 1 to 3 days, so all of you will be seeing me in Midoriya's body in that time span. The principal sat on his designated seat, arranging the papers that were laid out in front of him. Why Midoriya and you are together in the first place, that your bodies got swapped. No offense, but most body swaps quirks are contact-based. The blood hero seems to have balls of steel in questioning the principal. The teachers in the room watched the interactions with bated breath. You are correct at the assumption, Vlad. As for the answer to your question, he turned to look at Shouta with glinting eyes and freaking smile. Nezu's expression that is equivalent to tell them and you'll know what happened. Look. Shouta just bit his tongue to prevent himself from ranting to the meeting room about the world dominations that will happen sooner or later. Midoriya and I were on our way to my office to play some chess, the principal nonchalantly stated, and some teachers looked at him like he grew a second head. Some also looked at him in fear. It sounds like you do it regularly, sir, Thirteen commented, which made the principal cackle. That we do. Currently we are at 203 to 189. I'm the winning side, of course. The principal looked proud of his achievement, but to everyone else in the room, all they can feel is disbelief and fear. The room went silent again. Someone beating the principal in chess that many times was unheard of. Hell, Shouta only defeated the principal 10 times. That achievement alone is a great feat, but 100 times? The green bean beat you 189 times? Memory stood up from beside him, her eyes wide in shock, mirroring the teacher's reaction in the room. Yes, is something wrong with that, Kaima? Nezu hummed affirmatively, an eyebrow raised in questioning. Nothing, sir, Memory whispered before going back to her seat. Isashi leaned towards him, and Memory, a hand put on the side of his mouth, before whispering. Should we start the contingency plans for the inevitable word domination? Shouta wanted to snort, but can't help but agreeing with his friend. Now he knows that he isn't the only one who thought of the inevitable. A chuckle then reverberated in the room, and Shouta felt eyes piercing him. Rather, eyes piercing the person beside him. You can, Yamada, assuming that it hasn't started yet. The principal looked at Hisashi with glee in his eyes, and the teachers collectively felt terrified at what they had heard. Excuse me, sir, but may I ask why are you in Midoriya's body? Where is the kid? Samantha's asked, and the principal's eyes shined more at the question. Excellent question. I sent him to the Hero Commission. Nezu eagerly answered, and the teachers were hit by a wave of confusion. What? But why? Papa Lauder asked, but the principal just waved him off with his hands. That's for me to know, and for you to find out. Nezu shook his head before finally clapping his hands. Since everyone is here, I need a status report of the classes. The principal smiled before tapping the papers that were now arranged in front of him. Most teachers grumbled at that. It was so weird that after the talk, which is basically a game of manipulation between the Hero Commission president and the UA principal, Nezu's secretary found her boss cackling at his phone. Taking a glance at the principal's phone, knowing that Nezu intentionally made her see the screen, she sighed, but a small smile graced her face. After all, who wouldn't when she knows what Midoriya-kun is capable of doing? The child is basically a Nezu in the making at this point. I see that Midoriya-kun doesn't like doing things the normal way, sir. The principal hummed affirmatively, still watching the live feed of the cameras in his phone. Indeed, it's very amusing to see that Midoriya's acting makes them believe that he is me. I'm honestly impressed how easily he fooled the teachers. A smile appeared on the principal's face before he added, It makes me wonder how will they react when they found out that there was no quirk at all. They'll probably never know unless you or Midoriya can tell them, Principal. She commented, making the principal chuckle. Schedule a staff seminar in the near future, will you? I think I need to work on their awareness due to this exercise. All right, sir. Izuku was thrilled, but a little disappointed at his teachers. Aizawa-sensei was the only one who questioned him again, if he really was the principal or not, and the other didn't even further question his identity, just believed it. He even purposefully slipped up sometimes, making his words less formal than Nezu, but they still didn't notice. Well, he could have imagined it, but he thought he got a few odd looks from Aizawa-sensei. The meeting ended about 10 minutes ago, and he gave Aizawa-sensei back his coffee stash. Half, at least. Poor man, thinking that Nezu is the only one who hid his stash. He asked Aizawa-sensei to come to the principal's office after the meeting, and sure enough, a few minutes later, the man is in his office with a steaming hot coffee in his hand. He didn't bother offering him tea and just drank on his own cup instead. You might be wondering why I called you here, Aizawa-kun. Izuku's lips curved upwards, his mouth still drinking the tea from his cup. Aizawa-sensei's eye twitched in irritation, much to Izuku's amusement. Just go straight to the point, Nezu. The man glared at him, and it took a lot of Izuku's self-control not to laugh. This man is absolutely predictable, just like Nezu-sensei told him. Izuku settled down the cup and gave him a smile that is reminiscent of her smirk. You know that it's too late for Shinso to be my student. Right, Aizawa-kun, he casually mentioned, gesturing to the man to sit down. Aizawa-sensei complied, but his suspicious eyes didn't leave Izuku. Yes, what's the point in this? The man clicked his tongue, irritation becoming more evident on his earlier blank face. Izuku hummed, tapping his fingers in the table, just like how his mentor sometimes tapped his paws when he was dropping a bomb to Izuku. The point is, I still want him to learn analysis. The underground hero suddenly became stiff, his eyes widening at Izuku's statement. He immediately recomposed himself, though. So you will be including him with your personal sessions with Midoriya then? Izuku laughed in his mind. If only Aizawa-sensei knew that this plan was to simultaneously scare Shinso and drag his purple-haired friend from his stoic teacher, he will be pissed. But it's a sacrifice he was willing to make, after all. What are friends for? This is what Shinso wished for, a time off from Aizawa-sensei, seeing how he complains most of the time to Izuku in his text about his training. He should have been careful about what he wished for. Not quite. I'll have Midoriya-kun teach him what I taught him, since Shinso might not learn it that well from me with the short amount of time before graduation. Won't you agree, Aizawa? From Izuku's research, Aizawa knows how hard it is to learn from Nezu, just like him. Unlike him, though, this man learned from his mentor for almost all his time in high school, just because the man was convinced by his mentor. If I must, then yes, it was hard to learn from you, but it was valuable in our work. Aizawa-sensei gritted his teeth like he is suppressing some memory in his mind. Izuku feels some pity for his teacher. He agrees that Nezu-sensei is hard on his students most of the time, but it's because his mentor is an eccentric creature. Nevertheless, his smile softened at the mention that all of the things Aizawa-sensei learned from Nezu are valuable in his career. I'm glad that you find it valuable, but that's not the only reason why I called you here. He took a sip from his cup again, his eyes gauging the reaction that will gain from the underground hero. Needless to say, he was not disappointed. The man looked terrified and pissed at the same time. Then what? The man begrudgingly asked, and a grin appeared on Izuku's face in response. Izuku wanted to feel bad. He really does. but blamed his crazy heart for feeling excited what he was about to do now. Now the plan was out of the way, it's time for plan 2. I would like you to teach the analysis class before I take over. The man simply stared at Izuku. Shouta knows that the principal is crazy red bastard, but he never knew it was to this extent. He just wanted to sleep. Damn it. Why him? Nezu, you know my skills aren't that good. Hell, Midoriya is even better than me. His voice raised a bit at the end, his frustration seeping through from his words. The red in the problem child's body simply shook his head, chuckling as he looked at Shouta with shiny eyes. You sell yourself short, Aizawa. Don't you know that Midoriya-kun looks up to you as a hero, not just because of your combat skills, but also because you are one of the few who use their brain as well? Shouta's blood vessel almost stopped. He doesn't know if he should be offended by the principal's statement or not. This is irrelevant. I am sorry, Principal, but your request is simply ridiculous, he curtly said, and he was rewarded with a chuckle and a sadistic, sweet smile from the principal. Oh, but I am not kidding, Aizawa-kun. Midoriya-kun knows you are excellent at analyzing people and situations, and that's why he'll accept you. In fact, he's the one who requested that you should be the one to teach analysis classes this year. But I can have that now, can I? The smile on the principal's face widened, knowing that Shouta was concerned. The rat knows his weakness after all. Shouta clenched his fists hard, the urge to deck the principal right there and right now coming at him at full force. Why me though? Surely there are other Reconnaissance heroes out there that he can look up to, and someone that can teach the class better, like you, Nezu. He replied back, knowing that his argument was weak at this point. Shouda's weakness is his students. He knows that. Nezu knows that too, and that is why he plans to use it to his full advantage. Yes, while my intelligence helps me with the plans, I am not really proficient in fighting, Aizawa. You, on the other hand, are great at both. So that's why I want you to help me prepare your students in integrating their analysis skill into their combat skills. Nezu took a sip from his tea again, before looking at Shouta with great intent. Besides, don't tell me that you don't want to see them suffer once in a while, The rat hummed condescendingly. He raised his eyebrows when he noticed that Shouta took a while to answer. What is there to answer when Shouta knows he is already defeated by the principal once again? All right, he sighed, his body slumping on the seat. He can't deny it, although he wanted to see his class flourish. He also wanted to see them suffer, just like what he experienced in the hands of the rat in front of him. Excellent. Let's talk about it later then. The principal clapped his hands, and Shouta resigned himself for a disastrous afternoon. Shinzo has a feeling that Midoriya is up to something again. Seeing that his green-haired friend was not in class, and was not in the dorms either when he sneaked into his room at lunchtime, Shinzo was sure that Izuku has plans to ruin the peace of their class again. Ever since that act, no one from their friend group would really see Midoriya in the eyes and not have flashbacks of Aizawa-sensei once in a while. Hell, one of Shinzo's embarrassing moments in that one time, he woke up groggy and called Midoriya Aizawa-sensei before asking where their training is. All students of Class 3A are in the lounge at the time, either looking at him with sympathy or holding out a laugh. So yeah, you could say that he wishes Izuku never acts as their teacher ever again. If he does, he might think that there is no Midoriya Izuku since the beginning, and all this studying at UA has been a dream. He's even questioning how they even are sane at this point. "Shut up, shitty hair!" the angry Pomeranian shouted when Kirishima tried to talk to him and Shinzo sighed. See his point? Apparently, Aizawa-sensei finds it a good time in their classroom, ignoring the shouts of a particularly angry blonde. "Alright, get into your PE uniforms and go to the ground beta afterward. If you are late after 10 minutes, you are expelled," the man said with finality, but all of the students knew that it was just an empty threat. The room went silent for a while before Ida had the courage to ask their teacher. "Sir, may we ask where All Might is?" The man closed his eyes and sighed. He looks more exhausted than usual. "Locked away. Now," Aizawa-sensei started, but was cut off by the chorus of shouts that sounded into the room. "What?" The man simply glared at the class to shut them up again. It was effective. "I said All Might is locked away. That's why he can teach you. Don't waste time and start changing." Aizawa-sensei clicked his tongue before moving himself towards the door, ignoring the protest of the students. "But Aizawa-sensei—" "Now!" Aizawa-sensei glared once again, and the room went silent. He nodded towards the door before leaving the class behind. The students sighed in relief before doing what they were told. Shinzo immediately went to the locker room to change, wanting his day to just end. Once he was finished changing his clothes, as soon as he got out of the locker room, Uraraka appeared beside him. "Hey, Shinzo-kun, why do you think Deku-kun and All Might isn't here today?" Uraraka suddenly asked while they were walking towards the area, and Shinzo just sighed. "For All Might, I think Mido looked away the man with his mother again, so he can force himself to teach us. At this point, I'll even assume that his mother and All Might are already married. As for the mysterious boy himself, I get a feeling that we will be getting a surprise that I hope I can erase from my mind afterward." He groaned, putting his head on his hands. Uraraka just looked at him pitifully. "So, you are saying that Midori will probably substitute for a teacher again?" the girl asked, and Shinzo noticed the hint of fear in her voice. He nodded in response. "A possibility." Izuku is in the fence watching the interaction between Shinzo and Uraraka and had to bite his tongue to hold off his laugh. Little did his purple-haired friend know that he is correct about his assumption, and Izuku was right about them listening to their conversation. Through the vents, he reached Ground Beta. He took a peek in the grills of the vent and grinned at Aizawa when he saw him. The man pinched the bridge of his nose and ignored him after that. The students started to trickle into the training area, chattering to themselves about what exercises they will do. "Listen up. Today's class is very important. You will learn about your strengths and weaknesses. and how you can improve," Aizawa Sensei announced, making his students look at him in confusion. "But don't we already know that, Aizawa Sensei?" Ashida asked, and Aizawa Sensei looked at her with suffering eyes. Some students stepped back, afraid of what will happen. "Trust me, you still don't know," the man whispered under his breath, fists clenched, and he tried to compose himself. The students shivered. Just what scared Aizawa Sensei to act like this? "There will be someone that will be teaching you for this class, but he asked me to do some pre-assessment, so..." After the man recomposed himself, the grin that all of Class 3A grew to hate and fear appeared on his face. The one that promises pain and suffering. "We'll be doing battle simulation with no quirks." So this was the first chapter of those two, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!